hang up those military vests and park away the tanks because instead, it's time to play cops and robbers. G'day guys, welcome to ozgameshop.com and today I'll be reviewing Battlefield Hardline, a crime stealth action first-person shooter that was developed by Visceral Games that I reviewed on PlayStation 4. A series well known for entirely military-themed stories and gameplay has now changed gears in this spin-off and gone for an entirely modern cop drama story with different gameplay opportunities and of course high-speed car chases. So let's start off with single player. You play as Nick Mendoza, a police detective who alongside his partner Kai are cracking down on drug-fueled violence, distribution and corruption within Miami. Along the way you meet some interesting characters, experience corruption within your own police department, sneak through and explore large open environments that range from the Everglades to Los Angeles, and of course blow up, with the occasional high-speed car chase of course. So as you can expect, this is not the most original crime story out there. In fact, it has been told in many films and even other police-themed video games with plot twists that you can see coming a mile away. However, the characters and the voice acting are top-notch, with enough personality to make them relatable and likable. It's just a shame that the story is the same old cop drama we've all seen before, and is even presented in episodic form, with each chapter being a different episode, with previouslys and on the next episode. Personally, I don't get the point of Hardline being presented this way. I'm assuming they wanted the game to feel like a TV show, but there's no exciting conclusions to each episode, and just feels like chapters of a film instead of a TV show. I do however enjoy the humour between the characters in the game. You may think it's corny, but it just livens up an already cliche story.
Here. Got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in here too?
Well, I could write bomb across it if you want.
Come on, let's get this over with.
The visuals of Battlefield Hardline can be a bit hit and miss. In certain levels, the visuals look great, usually because of the amazing weather effects, such as a hurricane. But overall, the game just doesn't look up to par with recent titles. It does keep a steady 60 frames per second during gameplay, but every time there's a transition from gameplay to cutscene, the frame rate and overall quality drops significantly, and it's very noticeable. Fortunately, the sound design is superb, and a continued highlight of the series, most notably for its excellent gun sound samples that echo in the distance to create an unsettling battle ambiance. And there's also the little things like the noise outside of the vehicle you're travelling in. And I love how in online multiplayer there is a fully functional radio that raises the roof to some hard rocking tunes. Moving on to gameplay, Hardline very much keeps to its Battlefield roots, with a variety of weapons and equipment, destructible environments, and action-packed sequences. But for the first time in the series, there is now a heavy emphasis on large open environments that give the player the freedom to either go in guns blazing or to take out enemies using stealth. Far Cry 3 and 4 are obvious inspirations for Hardline's new stealth-focused gameplay, and even contain similar elements such as being able to toss gunshell casings to distract enemies, able to tag enemies from afar, and even disable alarm systems. The way stealth works is that every enemy has a cone of sight that is displayed on your minimap, and as long as you stay out of their sight and not make too much noise, then you can sneak around with ease. You can also whip out your badge and freeze up to 3 enemies at once so you can make an arrest, making sure to keep your weapon focused on every suspect so they don't reach for their weapons. This is great and so very useful, but unfortunately I thought the mechanic wasn't fully realised and things about it bother me. In real life, not all criminals react in the same way, so the fact that every enemy in the game can be very simply arrested with no hassle is extremely unrealistic. Also, if a large number of criminals were just lying around the environment and you just left them there, then all they would have to do is stand up since only their hands are cuffed and get help, or in fact even call for help. I think this could have been solved if Nick actually rendered them unconscious after cuffing them, but then again, that's that's not really by the book, is it? It's just things like that that don't feel realistic. Yes, it may be an action game and it's just a simple mechanic, but it could have been realized and improved on so much more, since this is the only police action you can do in the game. In spite of these cons, I do appreciate the freedom the game offers you, because you can always just go in guns blazing, but I do enjoy scoping out the environment and slowly taking down enemies. Also, everything you do gives you experience towards Nick, which unlocks new weapons, equipment, and attachments. The game in many ways does still feel like Battlefield, with its explosive action sequences, but honestly I was yearning for more police procedure gameplay and environments. Like at the start of the game, you are exploring residential areas that are filled with all sorts of interesting characters and situations which are humorous, intimidating, and interesting.
Is there a problem, ma'am?
Lid doesn't fit.
Well, good luck, ma'am.
You.
You want me to call for backup, Mendoza?
Yeah. CP would probably send in the SWAT team.
At one point you even get to explore the Everglades on a hoverboat, but for the rest of the game you just get thrown into mostly cliche environments and situations we've all seen in previous Battlefield games. That's not to say that they are bad, but the whole police theme could have been taken to a more interesting place. I mean, who knows, maybe the game could have benefited from being its own original IP rather than a Battlefield spin-off. The other issues I have with single player is that not only are the cutscenes poor quality, but overall the visuals can look dated in places, and there are glitches that happen quite often, and the enemy AI is not the smartest. I think also the sight cone of enemies is too thin, as most of the time you can just slip by enemies even though they themselves can actually see you, and it doesn't matter because you are not in their cone of sight. And overall, it is just repetitive. Most of the missions just give you the freedom to tackle them how you want, but it doesn't give you anything new or interesting to do as you progress through the game. It's just rinse and repeat, and you aren't even a cop later in the game, but you can still freeze people. That makes sense. But let's move on to the multiplayer, the biggest highlight of the game in my opinion. Online multiplayer has taken on the cops and robbers theme, with fantastically fun results with huge 64, 32 or 10 player matches, a new cash progression system, and interesting new modes that kept me coming back. There are 5 game modes dedicated to the cops and robbers theme, along with fan favourite modes, Conquest and Team Deathmatch, which are the only modes that support 64 players, which equal to the most chaos. All of the other modes have their own highlights and I continue to have fun with all of them. In Blood Money, you must collect money from a stash in the level to take back to your team's vault, or even steal cash from the opposing team's vault. Heist is essentially a robbery in which the criminals must break into a vault and steal 2 items of interest to take back to their drop zone, and the cops must prevent this using lethal force. Hotwire fills the level with a variety of vehicles in which you need to collect and keep at a constant high speed to deplete the opposing team's tickets. Hotwire is a highlight for me because you need to constantly be moving and be wary of hidden explosives on the road or even on the objective vehicles. Rescue is for the most part a 5 vs 5 search and destroy game type, but instead of searching and destroying, the police must search for and rescue at least one hostage from the criminals, and there is no respawns. And finally, Crosshair, which is similar to Rescue, but instead of saving hostages, one team is transporting a VIP player to a drop zone, and the other team of course has to prevent this and take out the VIP. Conquest is also a highlight with huge open levels with plenty of vehicle mayhem and 32 vs 32 player action with smooth 60 frames per second, and everyone's blowing shit up, and some levels contain dynamic weather and destructive events. It is so much fun, the most fun I've had in a Battlefield in a long while, and there's something for everyone, and thankfully so far the online services seem stable and well maintained. So overall, Battlefield Hardline is a great spin-off but never fully realizes its police story and gameplay in the single player, but fortunately makes up for it in its action-packed online multiplayer. Your enjoyment ultimately comes down to if you love the cops and robbers concept, because there is pretty much no military sections in the single player and none in the multiplayer, so you have to say goodbye goodbye to the tanks. But honestly, I had a blast with Hardline. The single player is cliched and repetitive and has some silly ideas, but at least it tried something new, and I much rather prefer this over a military story any day. It tried something new, not all of it succeeded or worked to its full potential, but I still enjoyed the 6 to 7 hour ride, and of course a lot more hours into the fantastic online multiplayer. So in the end, I give Battlefield Hardline a 7 out of 10. The online multiplayer is the best part of the game without a doubt, and there is a lot of fun to be had there. The single player is enjoyable, but I can understand why it won't appeal to everyone due to its repetitiveness and cliched story and events. If you don't like cops and robbers, then there is always Battlefield 4, which is still a great experience ever since all of those issues have been mostly resolved. Thank you very much everyone for watching this review of Battlefield Hardline, and don't forget to check out ozgameshop.com.